Good morning, everybody, and welcome to VG Myths, the online internet video game TV show that you're not actually watching, but this video is tangentially related to. With 2018 ending, I'm closing the lid on Season 1 of VG Myths. You might be wondering what a season means. It doesn't. To celebrate this meaningless milestone, and because I suck too much at video games to get an actual video edited by the end of the month, I'm ranking every VG Myths challenge run so far in order of difficulty from easiest to hardest. Keep in mind, a lot of these runs are so similar in difficulty their exact placement on the list could be swapped around, and I'm even worse at judging games than I am at playing them. But which end of the list they're on should still reflect how effective the run is as a method of torture. Let's get the list started with the easiest. Episode 14. Can you beat Dead Rising without killing any zombies? Though most VG Myths challenges tend to make the game way harder, others are more focused on being an idiot. The game isn't really designed around killing zombies, they're more obstacles to avoid than targets to take down. The run does force the player to use a certain strategy, but it's not a strategy that necessarily makes the game that much harder than the usual, though you'd have a hard time arguing it doesn't make the game 10 times more frustrating. Episode 4. Can you beat Kirby's Adventure without eating? I actually included the entire instruction manual for this run in the episode itself. It's definitely on the being an idiot end of the scale. Kirby bosses almost always provide the player with a breathable object to let you damage them without a copy ability, and it logically follows that you would probably be able to beat most of the game without them at all. By the way, minor note, since who knows when I'll get the chance to mention it again. It's been claimed that you can fight Meta Knight without sword by either waiting a while or flying up near him. I'm not sure where or when this urban legend started, but it is totally bogus. While it might hold true in another Kirby game, the original fight in Kirby's Adventure absolutely requires you touch the sword. I haven't found any trustworthy documentation on the subject online, and even after leaving my own game on for over an hour, Meta Knight refuses to budge. I'd say this myth is busted, but that's not what this show is about. Episode 0. Can you beat Breath of the Wild without climbing? Yes, this does count. Despite carrying the Hyrule Myths moniker, I consider this the prototype episode of VG Myths. Even before the game came out, I wanted to see how exploration would change without a mechanic that seemed to be central to the experience. But while it does limit your options, it isn't as significant a downgrade in the long run as you might think. The only challenging part was, obviously, getting out of the first cave. The rest of the run was just goofing off for 24 hours, which I should note is the dev-intended method for beating the game. Episode 12. Can you beat Ratchet and Clank going Commando with only the wrench? Compared to Ratchet 1, going Commando's wrench-only run barely compares. The wrench got a huge range buff, gets upgraded throughout the game, plus the player gets access to a ton of overpowered defense upgrades. There are a few sections designed around explicit long-range weaponry, but spoiler warning, Teal Game Master already did all my work for me. Episode 3. Can you beat Splatoon 2 without firing the hero weapons? Okay, you might disagree with me putting this near the beginning, considering this run is literally impossible, but hear me out. The impossible parts are impossible for obvious practical reasons. You need to hit a thing, and the only thing that can hit that thing is a thing you can't use. The actual difficulty and execution for the rest of the game is on the easy side. Also, update. Half of the hits have been shaved off from a glitch discovery found by YouTuber Zelda Head in their Bombs Only run. You can trick the game into thinking a switch is covered by pausing the game for a second after covering the wall behind it. It still hasn't gotten us the whole way through, but it's a huge step forward, shaving off 3 of the 6 required targets. Episode 8. Can you beat Jak and Daxter without collecting any orbs? All the necessary tricks were already found out for this one, so the only difficulty came in execution, which isn't all that high up there, save for the zoomer power cells. Miscellaneous update, the speedrunning community has since found out how to get the remaining non-purchase power cells. Mike GamePro realized you could get the precursor blockers cell through the use of a magic super glitch literally one day after the VG Myths episode came out, and the Gnawing Lurker cell was found by Echo127 through the incredible, mind-bogglingly complex technique of crawling. Episode 6. Can you beat Sly Cooper without stealing any coins? This run didn't even have to do half the game, since speedrunners had already figured out how to skip it. I was only left on my own to figure out the second 2 worlds. It was a fun bit of problem solving, especially in the Flaming Temple of Flame, but it was only a matter of time until every necessary trick was uncovered. Sort of a mix between doing it for the sake of a challenge and doing it for the sake of being an idiot. Episode 5. Can you beat Super Mario Sunshine without hovering? Most of this run revolves around the fun of rethinking how you move through the levels. There are still some high difficulty spikes, but I can't justify putting it much higher on the list since they're all things you'd be able to do without much trouble after you put some practice in. The highlight is, of course, Corona Mountain, with a short but extremely tense time-sensitive series of spiked platforms just far enough away from each other to demand spin dives, one of those jumps only being just barely possible. Episode 9. Can you beat Ratchet and Clank with only the wrench? Once again, this run has already been done before, but the relative combat focus of the game makes up for it, with the final boss battle acting as a gigantic endurance challenge. The fight takes about an hour, and there's only a limited supply of health, so the occasional tiny mistakes add up super quick. Episode 2. Can you beat Splatoon without firing the hero shot? Oh yeah, we are getting into a real challenge now. This was a really fun one to figure out because I had no idea any second I could run into something that just suddenly made the run impossible. Then, after lucking out through almost the entire game, you get to DJ Octavio. DJ Octavio is my absolute favorite final boss battle in all of video games, and fighting him without the hero shot cranks him up to the maximum possible level. The ludicrous divine timing needed on the second eyeball is so strict, I started to legitimately believe it was impossible to throw out 3 ink bombs fast enough. But after several failed sessions, I finally managed to prove myself wrong. And let me tell you, it was delicious. Episode 13. Can you beat New Super Mario Bros. 2 without collecting any coins? This challenge essentially turns every coin in the most coin-littered Mario game into an instant death hitbox. But surprisingly, that doesn't automatically mean the run is going to be as impossible as you'd expect. Figuring out an exact route through the game takes some thought, and a few levels have high execution requirements, but most are simple, and the ability to save after every level drops the necessary time investment drastically. The game does get a decent boost thanks to its final level, having several tricky rooms in a row, followed by the RNG nightmare of the end credits. But it turns out, for some reason, of all the 2D Mario platformers, the one that's easiest to beat without grabbing coins is the one with the gold box. Episode 7. Can you beat Super Mario 3D World without jumping? Personal note, this is in the running for my favorite run and favorite episode. If anybody here is a fan of 3D World, I highly recommend trying the Jumpless Challenge. Unlike most challenge runs, Jumpless 3D World keeps a consistent minimum difficulty level through the entire playthrough. Even if beating a level is easy, the green star requirement pushes you to go the extra mile, making almost every single level a totally new experience. And on top of that, fuzzy time mine! Do I have to say anything else? I don't even want to know what my brain looked like after I figured out how to use all 4 controllers. In fact, technically, I had to use the gamepad too. That's 5 controllers! By the way, miscellaneous note, I unfortunately couldn't find the original video, but somebody figured out how to do Fuzzy Time Mine single player. You can trigger Peach's float immediately after popping through a cloud, letting you grab on the wall. Apparently it's actually 10 times easier to do it that way. I ascended to a higher plane of consciousness for nothing. Episode 11. Can you beat Sonic 3 and Knuckles without pressing right? Of course, this one could have been 10 times easier without the failed bonus challenge, but come on. Pressing left is literally just pressing right backwards. This run was mostly uncharted territory save for Razor and Xenon's TASes, which I decided not to watch so I could go into the run blind. And since pressing right is the only thing you do in a Sonic game, we had to do some major problem solving in every one of the game's levels, and otherwise simple segments turned into instant death traps. If it weren't for 3NK saving your progress after every zone, I doubt I would have managed a mission complete. Speaking of Razor and Xenon, they actually made a ROM hack of Sonic 3 and Knuckles that automatically kills you if you press left or right, titled Broken Knuckles. I highly recommend it if you love Sonic games but want to hate them. Episode 1, 1.1, and 1.2. Can you beat Super Mario Odyssey without jumping? I'm including the 2 addendum episodes working towards maximum moons, which is why this one gets so high up. The original Any % run was a fun bit of problem solving, but didn't offer too much in the way of difficulty, so it would be near the beginning, but going for every single moon moves that difficulty slider to the max. Some of these moons are ludicrously hard, others looked impossible at first glance, but were obtained later, and more remain impossible to this day. It's worth noting there have been quite a few discoveries since the original videos came out that get us a couple more moons. Most recently, Thienzers found out a way to get both Bowser Kingdom Timer Challenge 2 and Breakdown Road Final Challenge. Also, there have been a lot of comments suggesting I use either the dog glitch or Glide-On glitch in Sand Kingdom to get on the pyramid. I very much appreciate the enthusiasm, but keep in mind we can't do the dog glitch or Glide-On glitch without a dog or Glide-On. Remember, worlds change after you complete their story, one of those changes in Sand Kingdom being the appearance of the dog and Glide-On. They don't actually exist yet unless you've already climbed the pyramid. Tricks keep getting discovered every day though, so I think it's only a matter of time. Episode 10. Can you beat Rockman without getting hit? Unlike most VG Myths episodes, this is a single segment run of the game in its entirety. One mistake and the game is over. There are no continues, my friend. While being an idiot isn't explicitly banned, this is definitely on the challenge run end of the spectrum. The hardest parts would normally be the boss fights, but the pause glitch evens the playing field and almost totally eliminates them from the equation. But even with that cheese, the necessary perfection of doing all 10 levels in a row adds up to real challenge of the player's endurance. But that's still not the hardest episode, because immediately after is episode 15. Can you beat Rockman 2 without getting hit? In case you think the pause glitch made me a cheater pumpkin eater, I've got good news. The devs thought so too, making the Rockman 2 Mr. Perfect run take the cake as the hardest VG Myths run seen yet. The pause glitch has been removed, the game is almost twice as long, and this run still has to be done in one straight shot. With bosses like Airman and Quickman, there's very little room for error, regardless of how nice the RNG gets. No other episode has a feeling that compares with the adrenaline rush that comes in during that final boss gauntlet, and the knowledge your days of training just might maybe have finally paid off. Real talk, I've always felt the classic Rockman series had the perfect formula for damageless runs, and I've wanted to do one of every game in the series for years. And would you believe Rockman 3 is even longer and harder than 2? Good thing I'm giving up and never playing another Rockman game ever again. By the way, I should probably address the elephant in the room. And that is the end of the list. Thank you for watching, everybody. Just kidding, number infinite Castlevania without breaking Dracula's stuff. Yep, that's right. Rockman 2 was the hardest run yet seen, but Castlevania is so hard it didn't even get an episode. I started working on this run with the intention of having it come out this month, but after a ton of pain, I'm losing hope, which is especially concerning since I'm almost at the end of the game. According to the rules, we're only allowed to kill bosses. Every single candle and every single enemy must be left intact. This makes it impossible to obtain whip upgrades or sub-weapons, and the bosses themselves have candles in the background limiting the areas we're allowed to attack. Since Simon conserves his momentum whenever he jumps, this run takes some seriously precise timing and, as always, ludicrous amounts of strategic idiocy. I had high hopes after finishing some seemingly impossible segments, and then got to the absolute last possible part of the game I thought I might get stuck: death. Turns out, his name is literal. Death spawns up to 4 scythes that regularly slide in Simon's direction. Breaking a scythe is banned by the challenge, so our only choice is to find a way to kill Death while the scythes are constantly following us. I've spent hours training with a save state just before the battle, but even during that training, I've yet to manage to beat Death once. Please, if anybody out there is good at video games, anybody at all, tell me if you've got any bright ideas. Because unless we figure out a consistent strategy, the Castlevania Destruction of Property run is mission failed. And that actually caps off the list, for real this time. I did try to do gun without guns. I was very excited about that one, but that one doesn't work. One final note, super special thank you to everybody who's watched any episodes of Season 1, and double special thank you to anybody who's left constructive criticism to help make this online internet video game TV show just that bit much more online internet video game. Plus, as always, quadruple double special thanks to all Patreon backers, including Andrew Seibert, Mrs. Seckman, Eric Flynn, Les Lamb, Holy Mother of Cheese on a Holy Cracker, RB Drock, Zolan Zero, Mr. Harry Wonka, Alexander Bucken, Chris Nate, Anu, Ikrira, Jez, Robert B. Brashier, Citrus Lush, Zainabane, Salieri, BCR Main Sound, Joshua Bradbury, Vincent Hall, Basinger 313, Vincent YT, Yellow Alert, Game Guy Rusty, Anon42, Suit, Robert Cephazon, Alex Nelson, Pepsi Man EXE, Christian Long, I'm Justin, The Quacky Gamer, Chocolate Boy 97, Bainbridge, Kazoy, Maxwell Hairmans, That One Weird Person I Guess, Mr. Bones, Melmos, Luminescent Dragon, Jay Snilges, Backzoid, Liddy Kitty, Sentient Bowtie, Nissan Abraham, Z-Master, and Shoebox. Let me know how much every single video I've ever made sucks and how I can improve in the comments below. Special septepeldecker gozaimasu for watching. Get out of my house, and remember to rudely invite yourself back over for Season 2.